Without a purpose, life is motion without meaning, activity without direction, and events without reason. Without a purpose, life is trivial, petty, and pointless. Rick Warren. What does it mean to live a meaningful life? To live a meaningful life requires a purpose in life. Many have tried defining purpose. However, each individual is different with different experiences and opinions, and these unique characteristics create diverse definitions of purpose. Works of literature such as Brave New World, The Yellow Wallpaper, The Ones Who Walk Away from Omelas, Oil, ChatGPT, The Soul Eater, 1984, and Macbeth all highlight the diversity that surrounds their protagonists' purposes and what it means for them to live a meaningful life. Brave New World. Talking? But what about? Walking and talking that seemed a very odd way of spending an afternoon. Brave New World shows many unique perspectives on purpose in life. The majority of the population have accepted and embraced the conditioning of the world state, and in turn, have also embraced a new meaning to their lives. As the reader follows Bernard Marx's life, it becomes clear that he is not susceptible to the state's conditioning, as he enjoys activities that are deemed unusual by society, as well as disliking artificial happiness. Bernard's purpose in life stems from his values of having genuine and profound relationships with others, as well as experiencing real emotions rather than simply taking drugs such as soma. Bernard's relationship with Lenina highlights just how much he truly values it by proclaiming his love for her. Meanwhile, Lenina finds some of Bernard's romantic gestures weird and unusual. When Bernard suggests that the pair go to the Lake District to talk, Lenina quickly exclaims that it is a very odd way of spending an afternoon. The different way that the two view the subject shows that their definition of a meaningful date differs dramatically due to their differing experiences and opinions. As a beta, Lenina is given more thorough conditioning and has less independence and free-thinking abilities compared to an alpha, such as Bernard, which makes her have a more socially acceptable way of behaving. Meanwhile, Bernard, who is already unusual physically, can see through the superficial consumerist society being pushed by the world state. While they still find meaning in their differing ways, their various experiences highlight how life has multiple meanings and purposes for each individual because of their experiences and their own beliefs.
But I don't want comfort. I want God. I want poetry. I want real danger. I want freedom. I want goodness. I want sin. That is a quote from Brave New World and is said by John. John's ideal life includes wanting danger and sin, which are generally non-existent in their society, as well as things such as God, poetry, and to a certain extent, freedom as well. John's sentiments suggest the idea that a life without purpose is a life without struggle, and a life without struggle is simply a meaningless life. Unlike John, these sentiments are not felt by others such as Mustafa Mund, which again goes to show that purpose and meaning is defined by the individual, not the state, and will differ from person to person. However, looking at the state, we can see that it is attempting to create a uniform purpose for its citizens with cloning technology, as it allows the creations of 96 identical twins who will be working in 96 identical machines, creating people who have the same experiences as others, resulting in a collective purpose.
The Yellow Wallpaper. The normal life of every human being, work in which is joy and growth and service, without which one is pauper and parasite. The Yellow Wallpaper and the subsequent response from the author shows how meaningful it is for Charlotte Perkins Gilman to live a productive life. The text follows the life of a woman who is experiencing postpartum depression and, as a treatment, is forced to stay locked in a mansion in the countryside, not being allowed to do any sort of work. Similarly, the author of the text was also suffering from the same syndrome and was told by her doctor to quote-unquote live as domestic a life as far as possible, without any opportunities to do any work. Because she was told to never touch pen, brush, or pencil again, her passion as a writer was put on pause while she recovered, which pushed her to the borderline of utter mental ruin, me during school. The lesson learnt from her experiences showed that recovery is not as simple as just resting, but more importantly, it shows that stopping someone from pursuing their passion creates more mental stress on them, as well as ridding them of their daily routines. With nothing to do, people like Gilman are driven to madness, which destroys their purpose in life. By resting and doing practically nothing, Gilman feels like she is living a meaningless life. And, as she puts it, she felt like a parasite as she could not work, which to her was her purpose in life since it provided joy and growth and service. This shows that another key value to living a meaningful life comes from being able to find joy in the things you do and to be able to provide a service to others. That is Gilman's purpose. The Ones Who Walk Away from Omelas.
but they seem to know where they are going, the ones who walk away from omelas. This was a quote from The Ones Who Walk Away from Omelas, the short story. For the residents of Omelas, there are two principles influencing them. Those who stay in the city prioritize themselves over others. Meanwhile, the ones who walk away show dedication to living a moral and selfless life. At first, Omelas seems like to be a perfect utopian city, where everyone is happy and lively. However, it is soon discovered that all this perfection is built on the suffering of a single child, who is constantly neglected and forced to live in isolation in a basement. As people see the child, some decide to leave and walk away from Omelas. They seem to know where they are going, which shows that they have placed their values and morals of not profiting from the downfall of others above the comfort and convenience of living in the city. Their apparent awareness of where they are going implies that they are not lost if they follow their morals and walk away from the city, because their purpose in life is fulfilled when they are no longer in the city. Their purpose is not to live a good and comfortable life, but rather to live a moral life without profiting at the expense of others.
Oil. Tsukiva had tried to refuse becoming a sewing slave. Tsukiva had sworn to them then that she would rather have lived alone than go with a husband. She had begged them to spare her the humiliation of marriage, asked if she might simply live apart and support herself, visiting occasionally rather than going away with a man. For Tsukiva, living a purposeful life requires freedom and independence in a male-dominated environment. Tsukiva's struggles in her marriage highlight just how important and pertinent it is for her to live an independent life. She never fully agrees with the arranged marriage set by her parents, since she refuses to become a sewing slave to a man who she reinforced her feelings as she reacted by quote-unquote swearing to her parents that she would rather have lived alone than to go with her now husband Ernganak. The reader is given implicit and explicit contextual clues to see her desires as she is being harassed by Ernganak. As the story progresses, the reader learns about her plan to store up enough supplies to make fleeing feasible. This piece of information is very important, especially since they are living in an igloo in the wilderness, meaning that she is heavily reliant on her hunter husband for food and survival. Her plan shows just how far she is willing to go to live her ideal purposeful life, even willing to brave the harsh wilderness without a reliable food source. As she puts it, she would rather live apart and support herself than to go away with a man and completely throwing away her last bits of independence. ChatGPT, the Soul Eater.
The day of rest is significant because it suggests that the creation required a certain effort on God's part, that some form of artistic struggle had taken place, and this struggle is a validating impulse that gives God's world its intrinsic meaning. Meaning is discovered, not covertly formed through thoughtless combinations of ideas. As ChatGPT bases its purpose off of other people, it rejects the notion of creative struggle, thus removing the obstacles on the road that leads to creativity. Nick Cave states that creation required effort and forms of artistic struggle, as it validates the impulse that gives God's world intrinsic meaning. Artificial intelligence, despite claiming to have its own sentient mind, bases its thoughts on informational data that is given to it to analyze. As such, it generates thoughtless prompts without a purpose and without struggle. It takes in information and it immediately gives out information. From the perspective of someone seeking purpose from ChatGPT, what they receive would be far from it. People use ChatGPT with a purpose, yet what ChatGPT does is it gives the person an answer without meaning behind it. This is because it brings out rephrased data with no struggle. As people continue to place their reliance on that chatbot, we slowly lose our resilience to do and create beautiful things. Creativity will become fast-tracked, and the goal to bring out unique ideas will no longer exist. For our world, the meaning of life is what surrounds it.
One's purpose is not immutable. Meaning can change depending on what goes on in life, demonstrated through Winston's purpose transferring from Julia to Big Brother. The telescreen received and transmitted simultaneously. Any sound that Winston made above the level of a very low whisper would be picked up by it. Moreover, so long as he remained within the field of vision which the metal plaque commanded, he could be seen as well as heard. If you were a citizen of Oceania, you would be in constant fear knowing that someone is always watching your screen. You wouldn't be able to do the things that you want to do alone in your own time. In this dystopian world, privacy ceases to exist. All the actions and conversations you make are easily recognizable by the people monitoring the telescreens. So what makes a purposeful life or a meaningful life in the world of 1984? Does living in constant fear of the government be a purpose to the citizens of Oceania? If you loved someone, you loved him, and when you had nothing else to give, you still gave him love. Winston remembers his mother here. To him, human love is worth the effort despite the fact that the party is trying to destroy it. To the citizens of Oceania, living a meaningful life is living a life with the purpose of following the rules set by Big Brother. Their life, in a twisted definition, has its own purpose, its own struggle, and its own meaning. For Winston, even though his life is controlled by the party, his development and how his mother raised him put meaning into his own life. Love. Because of his mother, his purpose of living is mainly based on love. And as his mother showed him that human love is worth the effort, therefore Winston's purpose is love, and is a major reason why he values Julia so much throughout the story. However, Winston's purpose later changes to Big Brother. Although he still has love as his purpose, the party broke Winston's morals so much by making him betray his love to Julia. In the end, he would have no one to go other than Big Brother. Even if he fears or despises Big Brother, all he can do is love him, so that these horrors of torture and betrayal do not happen to him again. As such, his purpose is now Big Brother. Although horrible purpose, he still has a purpose, and it sets his own meaning in life. Macbeth.
Through Birnam wood be come to Dunsinane, and thou opposed being of no woman born, yet I will try the last before my body. I throw my warlike shield, lay on Macduff, and damned be him that first cries, hold, enough. Upon hearing the initial prophecies of the Weird Sisters, Macbeth dreams of becoming powerful through any method viable. His goals and values all surround the idea of becoming more powerful, and as such, Macbeth's purpose in life is to become king, which in his mind would mean accomplishing a meaningful life. Once Macbeth reaches his position of power, he still kills people such as Banquo, which shows that he does not fully believe in the prophecies, and as the second set of prophecies slowly come to fruition, Macbeth loses his faith in defeating Macduff, and in a sense changes his purpose in life from following the prophecies to accepting fate and death. He acknowledges that the prophecies are working against him, however, he will still try his best. It shows that his transition in the story reinforces the idea that purpose can change, despite however much effort and struggle spent, and ultimately purpose changes based on situations and time.
Life's but a walking shadow, a poor player that struts and frets his hour upon the stage, and then is heard no more. It is a tale told by an idiot full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. Upon analyzing these texts and stories, we see a wide variety of ways one can live a meaningful life. However, everything mentioned relates to having a valuable purpose in life. Our purposes in life are all unique and reserved for ourselves, and just like the characters in these texts, we too are all different people who have seen and experienced many hardships and joys. All this ultimately culminates into a diverse set of values and goals, which are the key building stones to creating a foundational purpose. Someone's purpose in this world may seem worthless to another. However, it is important to understand that this is a situational principle, and when we are following our own purposes in life, we may not always be happy, but the importance of living by these values will be shown as time goes on. One man's trash is another man's treasure. Otherwise, these sets of values do not result in the creation of our purpose. Life is like a book, subjective, and is only given meaning by the reader's interpretations.